Good evening and welcome everyone. It's a great turnout. I look forward to a fun evening, a fun event. On behalf of the Front Royal Independent Business Alliance, my name is Robert McDougall, and FREBA has generously offered to host the 2024 Candidates Forum for the town of Front Royal, so I appreciate them for doing that. This is really an important opportunity not only for us to get to know our candidates a little bit better, but also for us to get more educated on local issues and town issues themselves. So think of tonight as more of a conversation than a debate in the traditional sense, but certainly we'll get into all the topics that are important to the town. We have moderated questions that the panel will address and discuss, but also you've had the opportunity on the way in, and raise your hand if you missed it, to put a topic of discussion that's of interest to you or a question that you'd like to see addressed. I'll be collecting those and just making sure that the question is relevant to town government, because sometimes at events like this, you'll get questions that are related to the county or the state or things that aren't really in the purview of the guests that you've invited. And also that we're not duplicating the same issue. So I think we have a pretty good start on the questions that Mike will be addressing, and we'll go from there. This year, just to remind everyone, we have just the town races at play. So we have the race for the mayor of Front Royal. And running for that office is Lori Cockrell and Tom Eshelman. And then we have a race for 3 open seats on the Front Royal Town Council, which is a body of 6 town council members. 3 of those seats are open this year's election, and we have 4 candidates running for those 3 seats. So again, in alphabetical order again, the 4 candidates vying for the 3 available seats on town council are Walt Mabe, Melissa DiDomenico Payne, Walt Mabe, Wayne Seelock, and Glenn Wood. And before I turn the program over to our moderator, I just have several thank yous I do want to put out there. First and foremost to the Front Royal Independent Business Alliance and their president, Craig Laird, for hosting this 2024 Candidates Forum. Thank you, Craig. For those that are not familiar with the mission of FREBA, they're a nonprofit devoted to supporting locally owned and operated businesses, collaborating together on marketing efforts, and doing things to build the vitality of our small business ownership across the community, not just in the downtown area, but across Front Royal and Warren County. One of their pillar sort of values and virtues is developing and supporting policies that promote community-rooted enterprise. And that's where I would put tonight's forum into that probably that pillar, that category of getting the community more engaged and more educated and involved in local business and their local political dynamic. Obviously, their business membership is made up of independently, locally owned and operated businesses committed to providing a thriving community for Front Royal and Warren County. My second thank you goes to Rick Novak and Royal Cinemas, who have generously offered their main theater for tonight's event. At no charge, by the way. So Rick has canceled the main theater showings for anyone who was planning on coming to that. He does have the 2 other smaller theaters still operating tonight, but he's given us the main room, again, at no charge to support this civic engagement. Thirdly, to Mike McCool for agreeing to moderate our discussion, and also to the Royal Examiner and Northern Virginia Daily, and if there's any other publication I'm missing, for their media coverage of the event. Also to all of you here tonight, just for taking the time and showing the interest enough to take an hour out of your evening to come out and be present for this and to show that it's important. And lastly, and probably as importantly as all of it, to our candidates for first and foremost agreeing to sort of step into the fire and run in the public sphere, run for these offices that put you out in the public eye and put you under the scrutiny of the public. And it is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of ability, and it can be a very thankless job a lot of times. So it is true public service, and we thank the candidates that have stepped forward to run, and also the candidates that for the willingness to be here tonight for this forum. Just a quick review on mechanics and format. When I turn it over to Mike here, we'll give each candidate a couple minutes just to introduce themselves, explain who they are. We're not going to be too tough on the time limits tonight. Again, this is meant to feel more comfortable and familiar So, but about 2 minutes to introduce yourself. You don't have to take that long. If you take 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that's okay too. And then we do have some questions. Mike and I sat together and just what are sort of the key issues facing the town? So hopefully we've covered the bulk of maybe the questions you submitted in that initial lineup. And Mike will just sort of go down the line and give each candidate a chance to talk about it. And if there's a follow-up comment to it, feel free to do that as well. Once Mike gets through those questions, I will have collected the questions that the audience submitted and organize those again in a way that if it's relevant, respectful, and it hasn't already been addressed, then I will be asking those questions to the panel on your behalf. Okay. And I was going to cover sort of rules of engagement for the night, but I think I just did. The purpose of tonight is that we talk about things that are relevant or respectful to each other, and we talk about topics that are productive for increased engagement in the issues facing the town of Front Royal. So I think we'll have about an hour to do this or so, more or less. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mike. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Rob. All right. If anyone has watched the Royal Examiner and some of the town talks that I do, we're going to use a similar format where all the candidates will be able to discuss the question if they want to come back and answer again. So it's not quite a debate, not quite a forum, but I think it's more of a conversation so that you can really find some details and some truths from these individuals. All right, gentlemen, we're going to start with Walt down at that end down there. And this is where you introduce yourself. So take a couple minutes to tell people about you, Walt.
Can you hear me okay? No. Wonderful.
I don't think there you go.
Doesn't work.
It works.
Push up, it's on. You were going out there.
Okay. My name is Walt May. I'm from Eden, North Carolina. I've been in Front Royal for quite a number of years, in and out. Our kids graduated high school. My wife graduated high school. I've been a business person that's worked in Front Royal and in the Northern Virginia area for quite a number of years. I'm passionate about the community. I was a member of the Board of Supervisors first year. I was the chairman. So I understand the county side of the government, which is one of the reasons that I'm running is because I would like to help the town and county join forces a little bit in areas where they can join. I know we're never going to be together completely, but at least we should be able to work together. And without people like myself and my compatriots here, it is not going to happen without a little bit of hard work. Being passionate is an important thing, and I am passionate about it. I want to be part of a change because there has been so much information going back and forth where we're not necessarily clear from a public point of view. And I'm a citizen, and I've listened to the council people and listened to the town, and I understand what they're trying to accomplish, but they're trying to accomplish without total transparency. And total transparency means talking. So I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to research, and when I do that, it gives me the opportunity to be a better councilman. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, and thank you to the FREBA group tonight for hosting this. We couldn't do it without you. Most of you know me. I'll give you the quick 5-cent tour. Born and raised here. I lived here most all my life. I did move away 10 years at the end of my career to finish it. Gave me a perspective living outside of Front Royal. I lived in the city of Martinsville, not far from the town of Eden. Beautiful little place in North Carolina. I moved back here after many years of being involved in our community until I had to move out to finish my career. And once I moved back, one of the things I wanted to do was get re-involved. And I did so by rejoining the Salvation Army, their advisory board. Everybody knows the good that the Salvation Army does. I joined the Rotary Club of Warren County, a very focused service club we have here. We've completed many projects with playgrounds for the school. We've just raised a significant amount of money for Blue Ridge Opportunities. We helped landscape the corner of CVS and John Marshall Highway. A lot of things around this town have the fingerprints of our Rotary Club and the Front Royal Rotary Club on it. So I'm very proud to be part of that, and again, the opportunity to serve. The wife and I, wife Amy, 46 years married, 2 children, Harrison and Jennifer, and 3 grandchildren, Connor, Seeley, and Huxley. They all live here, and giving back to the community and making it a type of community that they can grow up in has been very important for us. We recently joined Cars Changing Lives, a new ministry created for helping people by giving them a used but productive automobile. It does change their lives. We're on car number 61 now, I believe. Involved with our church. I'm on the Buildings and Grounds Committee, so anybody that goes to church knows what that means. Yes, we're mowing the lawns and we're fixing the toilets and things like that when it happens. And, my wife saw that, and she serves on the church session. So we are definitely servants of God, servants of our community. And I ran last year for an unexpired term. Somebody had left council, had left it about a year of the term hadn't been completed. I saw this as an opportunity to give back in other ways. And my love for the community, my support for my friends and colleagues convinced me that I could make a good difference for our town. Now, I will tell you, the last 10 months has been interesting. There's been highs, there's been lows, but I'm getting to feel every time I go to a meeting, I learn more, I understand how things operate. I do believe there are some things that are riding on this election that if we work on would be better for the citizens of Front Royal. Transparency, communication are 2 big areas where we need to be more transparent as we transact our government duties for the citizens. And we need to be better communicators. And we recently had an incident with our downtown merchants where we could have handled something a whole lot better. Our downtown is thriving now thanks to years and years and years of people investing and you folks shopping or eating downtown. So we're a long ways from where we were, but we're getting better. And I would humbly ask you for the opportunity for 4 more years to continue to push to develop our businesses in town, plan growth, the things that you have said to me, many phone calls and also emails. And I just want to be here to serve. Thank you.
All right, Tom.
Okay, my name is Tom Eshelman, and before I came here tonight, I thought, how can I give you a resume in 2 minutes, but I think I can pull it off. I was born and raised here, just like Glenn. 5 years old, we moved to a family farm outside of town, out into what's called Panhandle. Believe it or not, my age will depict this, I went to a 5-room schoolhouse called Otterburn, out on Rivermont. And then I moved into the big city schools after that in 6th grade, went to 15th Street and Ressie Jeffrey School now, and graduated from Warren County High School. Entrepreneurship is probably the key in my life. At 22 years old, I opened up a clothing store in the shopping center called John Thomas Limited, had a partner on that. And during that period of time, learned a lot about business, learned a lot about management. Also, that's where I met my soon-to-be wife, Terry. And Terry was from South Carolina, so after marrying her, she said, you got to find the Southern way of life. So we went down to Charleston for 10 years, and while there, was blessed with twin sons, Stuart and Sam. And then she decided she liked the Waltons way of life that we had back up here, so we moved back. And we raised the twins here. They graduated from Warren County High School. I started investing in downtown when we first moved back. Some of you that have lived here back in the mid-90s, downtown was pretty barren. And just saw, I don't know, just some sort of a calling. and toward the old McCrory 5 and Dime building, which was owned by First Bank at the time. And my wife and I enjoyed going to wineries, which there weren't as many then, but antiquing. And so we opened up the Middle Main Antique Emporium. And that was basically our first run into having investments in downtown. Eventually, there were some other businesses that needed some rehabbing. I was able to acquire the old tenant building, which is kind of across the road. And we did some rehab on that. That was, 25 years ago. And then I also bought the old Ramsey building, Ramsey Hardware building, before they moved down to the Ford dealership. And we rehabbed that. And what's great about those two investments, just to be very clear, I did a rehab back then, but it's nowhere near equal to what they equal to now. The investment in the old tenant building, which is now the Marisa Beer, is just incredible. It's brought commerce to downtown, and I applaud the efforts of any entrepreneur downtown that's opening businesses. Ramsey's Hardware is now an art gallery, which again is what's catering to the tourism that comes into the community, and is definitely contributing to our tax base, obviously. Fortunately, I still own the McCrory 5 and Dime building. It's now called the Middle and Main building. Several businesses run out of that my wife and I own. One is the auction company. I was fortunate enough to get my auctioneer's license. Had that for well over 20 years, 25 years. And we have an auction company upstairs. And then we also opened the driving school just a little under 20 years ago. We're the only driving school in Front Royal, and my wife runs that now. And we cater to about, 400 kids a year, well over that, almost 500. So we're giving a lot of licenses to kids, and we're, Warren County in high school. I started volunteering when I returned back here, and one of the first things I really got back involved in was the Warren County Fair. And with that, in volunteering at the Warren County Fair, I was there a long time, that led to some notoriety with some other fairs, and I was hired as a manager over at the Shenandoah County Fair. And I stayed there 10 years, and we had a lot of accomplishments and a lot of growth. The biggest project that I was proud of was that I played a major role in recruiting the Virginia Harness Horsemen and the Virginia Equine Alliance, two huge industries in Virginia. And basically we recorded racing at Shenandoah Downs, which is basically the Shenandoah County Fair when they're not a fair. And so established a great relationship with them, did a great management opportunity there, over $2 million worth of investment, managed all of that. Most recently, the horse people kind of followed my career, and I was asked to get back in the horse industry, and I now am the executive director for the Virginia Gold Cup in Warrenton and the Plains. We just had our fall races, and went off like a hitch last weekend. I came here directly from work, so apologize for the attire. I'll kind of wrap it up just basically on what I've been involved in the community. I am proud to be back a member of the Front Royal Rotary Club. I'm on the Warren County Fair Board of Directors. I volunteer on the Festival of Leaves Committee, and also helped to create the Dancing Downtown, and still volunteer for that. I was past president of the Downtown Business Association, and also the past president of Virginia Association of Fairs. Very proud of all those things, and the biggest thing I'm proud of, though, with my auctioneering is I've been able to help the local charities out. And I was kind of counting it today, and it's just easier to say, over the past years, I've done well over 100 charity events for fundraisers and for other charities in town, and I'm proud of that. And that leads me into why I'm doing this. I've never run for office before. I was encouraged by a lot of folks, the business community and friends and people in the town and county. And I've been passionate about Front Royal all my life. I mean, I've shown that and displayed that by investing in it. And we're still invested in it. And I just feel like I can bring a little different approach. That's all this really is. And I've been lifelong friends with the current mayor. I voted for him 2 years ago. I just feel like I can bring a different perspective, and I hope you can see that I do have a true passion for the community, and I hope you'll find out tonight, and I can get your support. Thank you.
See, we didn't need a clock for 2 minutes at all. Everybody stayed right on time. That's great. What we're going to talk about now is, what do each of you see as the best thing Front Royal has to offer? What's our strength? What's so great about Front Royal? Tom, I'm going to let you start off with that one.
That's pretty easy. It's our small town charm. When I was a kid, downtown was, Main Street. I have a passion for downtown. I used to go to the Newberry store, get a chocolate shake if my mom would give me a quarter. And I came and saw the matinees in this theater on Saturdays at 2 p.m., and it was 50 cents to see it. And I watched every Disney movie known to man back then, The Love Bug and all that other good stuff. And that's the kind of charm that's here. I mean, the fact that Rick has invested, another incredible, opportunity for this town to have a theater that actually operates and draws people downtown. It's truly remarkable, and I applaud his efforts. So ultimately, this small town charm, as long as we keep the stores filled and the restaurants going, I mean, there was a time when no business wanted to be down here. And now it's a great place. I think we only have one empty store on Main Street. So that's a congratulations to the people that are opening up the stores down here. And ultimately, I think, having new people in here, I can remember when, we didn't have, a lot of people were getting older. I remember, back in the days when, go through our mayors and things like that, you need new people. New people come in and invest into your community, and they offer things back to your community. I remember knocking on doors out in Happy Creek, knocked on the door. That house didn't exist 3 years ago, and it does now. And the gentleman that answered the door is on the planning commission now. So these folks are in our PTAs, they're in our groups, and I just find that charming. And I think that's what a community is all about. People that come here or the people who have been here getting involved. And that's why I'm a pretty strong volunteer myself, and I applaud the efforts of these gentlemen for doing the same thing, anyone that volunteers.
Okay. Ed?
Well, I think we have a lot of things going for us. Certainly the small town charm, good education system with both private and public schools here. We have a strong homeschooling system here that supports one another. The quality of life that we live in a safe community. I knocked on one woman's door and she said, "Why do we have so many police?" And I said, "Well, have you had any crime?" "Well, no." "Well, I see them running around everywhere." And I said, "Well, that's why we don't have any crime, or much crime to speak of." And we've invested in that. We have a great chief that's retired. Very excited for the new one coming on board. But they're the fabric of this town. Our town's located in an intersection of 66, just off of 81, 522, 340, 55. And a lot of people come here. A lot of people come here for our rivers, our parks, the Skyline Drive. The Skyline Drive, I'll talk louder. We've always been a tourist destination and someplace people enjoy coming to. But as time has gone on, a lot of people have found what a hidden gem we really have here in our quality of life and in our Mayberry kind of way. Somebody said last year at the Christmas parade, "This reminds me of a Hallmark movie." Well, it does. It does. And everything from fire trucks to dump trucks to children singing, elves, churches. I mean, we have it all. We have it all that participate and make the quality of life here what it is today. And that is the quality of life that we want to maintain while welcoming new people to our community. I don't want to shut the door. I want to say welcome. And it's funny, at a meeting recently, I said, "Who was born and raised here?" And myself, Wayne, Bruce Rappaport, and Tina the clerk raised their hands. And I think about 3 people in the audience. So where did the rest of you come from? Somewhere else. But you're here now. And you're here for, I suspect, the quality of life. We've been able to keep our taxes reasonable, provide good services. Could they be better? Always. But it's just a great place to live. It's a place I'm proud to call home. That's why we give so much back to it, and want to continue maintaining it the way it is.
Hard to follow some of that. Everything that we have said, or everything that has been said, is true. One of the big factors that I see is tourism. We may not like all of the leafers coming in town, and that's okay. But they bring us economy. They bring us dollars. They bring us ability to keep our tax base down. They bring us people coming in to see our rivers, our mountains, our leaves, our festivals. These are all things that will help our community. And I think tourism is a great thing. When companies are deciding to come to this town, they have to look at all of the different flavors of things that are going on to be able to come to this town. One of those is how much is going on. And we've got a lot going on every weekend. Every month, we've got something else that we can actually do. We've got good, solid people running good, solid businesses that are being successful. Yes, we got people we got businesses that are failing, but we've got businesses that are succeeding. We've got people that are succeeding. We've got a good education system. We've got a wonderful police force and a sheriff's department. They take care of us. We've got great emergency services. The list just keeps going on and on and on with me. And to be able to be a part of that through the town council is a blessing. And I can only say thanks to all of the people that are actually making this happen. And it's people like you. Most everybody comes from someplace else. I know I did. My wife was born and raised here. She came back to live here when we decided to retire. Where would you like to go? Let's go back home. Home is here. So I thank every one of y'all for that. That's about all I have on that.
All right, so I think we can all agree it's a great place. It's a great place. All right, so that brings us to the next question. What are some of our challenges that we have? You know, not necessarily bad things, but what are some of the issues we're going to be facing? Walt, you want to start?
Sure. The challenges that we have and we're trying to overcome, one is water. Everybody knows that there is a water problem in the town. It's been rationed, it's been changed, it's been rationed, it's been changed. The list goes on and on, but what are we going to do to fix it? The answer in my mind is, at this moment, I don't know how we're going to fix it other than maybe development of McKay Springs, but I've heard that it's not developable. You got to prove to me that it's not. We've got housing issues. I can't say strongly enough that we need some housing that people can afford. I can't make it any clearer that if a teacher and a policeman fall in love and get married and they can't afford to buy a house, shame on us. We can do better. We've got places that are available to be purchased, to be developed, and we can't just develop it because it's developable. We can develop it because it's the right thing to do, and it's also hard to do, because our community is based upon housing, education, and tourism, and several other factors that make us have a table. Without some of these things being level, that table wobbles, and our table can't wobble. And you have to sit back and think on the hard things. Just because you want something to work doesn't make it work if you don't think about all of the different questions that come up. In my previous career as a project manager, you had to think of what the risks are. How's it going to affect the economics of the community? What's it going to look like? Does it look like another, excuse my French, another vape shop? I mean, is it smart growth? Is it manageable growth? I'll let the other guys talk about it too, but I think that we're all pretty much on the same passion here about taking care of our community. Means taking care of our community. And it means taking care of the resources that are here already that people are really proud of. And I don't want to bring up a sore subject like the library. I'm proud of the library.
Well, Walt's hit on several, and one thing you're probably going to hear tonight is some repeated subjects, because I think we all have an opinion and, solutions perhaps for them. Certainly, I ran last year on primarily two things that, being new into politics and listening to people as I go knock on the doors. The first thing they said to me is, what are we going to do about our water? We were in our second year of drought. The first of 2 years of drought. We've had many other droughts here. In 1933, if you go to the Warren Heritage Society, you'll see a picture of the Shenandoah River once it merges together, and you could walk across the river. There were little puddles of water. You could walk across the river and never get wet. So we know history repeats itself. We know traffic, that's on my mind too. Weather patterns have changed. We're getting less rain, and sometimes we get too much rain, and that creates its own issues. But on our water, the town has authorized a study. After water issues were brought up, the town has authorized a study of the McKay Springs. And we authorized $30,000. Well, the study came back at $40,300. Well, we found the money to do that. While the consultant was talking to us, he said, we'll study that and we'll give you a report on it. However, we don't think that's your answer. We think perhaps the quarries are the answer. We have 2 quarries outside of town that are full of water, and one of them pumps water continuously to lower the water level in the quarry, to therefore be able to mine it and get the gravel and rock out of it. There's other ideas, and other people will share ideas with you as well. We have a temporary solution and we have a long-term solution. Our town manager said even if McKay Springs was the solution, that's a 5 to 7 year solution down the line. Planning it, what's it look like, putting a pump station, a treatment station, whatever there, and tying into the water lines. What about between now and then? Now, I know we're going to talk about development sooner or later. Why do you all let development come when we don't have enough water? I get that question all the time. I certainly understand it. We rely on the town manager to say we have enough water to support the development. And we do, in the sense of our capacity to process it, both on coming in to our house and going away from the house. We have a lot more capacity than we need. But water source is where we run into a problem. Plus, our water study this year showed several deficiencies around our town in pumping or sewage, getting the water to our homes and businesses or bringing the waste away from them. So somehow that has to be addressed, and those have large price tickets. So if we don't do something to offset those, we're all, the water and sewer users, are going to end up having to foot that bill. But there are solutions, immediate solutions, and then there are long-term solutions. The next thing I'd have to say I hear about, and I agree with, is a traffic study of our town. This has happened to a little bit, but when you go out, I was campaigning out in East 55 the other day, up in Colonial Drive and up in that area. And I'm telling you folks, those of you who live out there, I pity you, because from time school's out to I don't know what time, you can't enter the traffic on 55. I had to end up making a right, going up Leach's Run, going down Happy Creek Road, coming back up Commerce to get to CVS to pick up her prescription. It's, that's just one of many things. We have issues, Commerce into North Royal. Everybody's aware of 14th Street merge onto Shenandoah Avenue. 6th Street, come down behind a tractor trailer, see them straddling the lanes trying to make a right onto Commerce. And there's many other issues. I'm sure I'm not touching on all of them. The only thing coming up in the near future is we're going to replace the bridge at 8th Street, the Bing Crosby Stadium. That's been in the works for 7 or 8 years at least. And VDOT is going to fund their vision of improvement And notice I said their vision of improvement to South Street. That's being wholly funded by VDOT because there was 2 fatalities there. Please pay attention to these studies because it's going to change the way we do business on South Street. And maybe I'll elaborate on that later. Traffic is certainly a big thing. Our water and sewer infrastructure, some of our roads, and then development. Where is it going to occur? Do we have the water, the sewer for it? I'm sure we're going to get a question about development, so I'm going to pause on that, but development is a big concern as well.
Tom, can you add anything?
I'm going to try to be quick and brief. First of all, the water, I've made that a campaign issue when I started campaigning in May. And the only reason I made it a campaign issue is I was concerned about it last year. And I went back and watched every video of our current council and our current leadership. And on October the 19th of last year, at the time, at the liaison committee meeting, board member Dolores Oates brought up, wow, you guys might want to look into forming a water committee. And it was discussed briefly and said, yeah, that would be a great idea. The McKay Springs water issue was not discussed again until the liaison committee meeting this past spring. And again, it was to talk about buying it from the county. The county wanted to buy it from us. It wasn't talk about water. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just trying to point us in a direction. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. I can't understand why for a year we didn't talk about it. And then when it became a campaign issue, fortunately it came up in the agenda this past August. And if anything comes out of this at all, it's that we are discussing water. But I don't think McKay Springs is the answer. I talked to a geologist, Glenn was in that meeting as well. And my concern about McKay Springs is, yes, it will produce some water for us, but it's not going to produce enough. And if we draw too much out of it, we could actually harm the residents out in Reliance Road and in Cedarville. And obviously we don't want to do that. So rather than putting all of our eggs in one basket, for right now, we're just stalemated, we're looking at McKay Springs. Why aren't we looking at several different things? And if you've watched my video, you'll hear me say it. Why aren't we looking at reservoirs? There's a lot of farmland along the edge of the river that floods. They can only make hay on it. They're not, they can't build houses, so maybe those farmers would be interested in selling a 20-acre parcel of that, and we could put in a really nice reservoir. We should be talking to Frederick County, Clark County, possibly forming a water authority. Not that we operate each other, but that we equitably manage the water better between the 3 of us. I don't know if that is the answer, but we should at least discuss it. I talked to the remount, the Conservation Center. There's over 3,000 acres up there. And I spoke to the person that runs it up there. And I said, has anybody ever called you from the town of Front Royal? They said, no. I said, well, I'm asking, is it possible that you all have a ravine up there that we could plug up? It's land you're not using because it's too steep, and we could build a reservoir up there. The town would pay the cost, and you would provide the land and have the resources of the water for your animals. So it's a cool idea. It's something to look at. I mean, it wasn't a no. And so this is just kind of thinking out the box a little bit. And the biggest thing I'm pro on is the 2 quarries that are full in Riverton. They're full to the top. And it's a great source of water. That's where Frederick County gets most of their water. And why aren't we, again, I think water is a big issue. I really do. In the past 20 years, we've been in drought conditions. They run it like hurricanes, D1, D2, D3. And we've had a D2 approximately 35% of the time over the last 20 years. We've had 3 D3s. We experienced one this past summer, last year, and then back about, 12, 13 years ago. I don't have it memorized. But it's just an issue that I feel like we should be doing something about it. And instead of just one option, I think there should be 3 or 4 options on the table. Getting over that, the other one is just transparency. I'm a community person. I get involved. I like knowing what's going on. And I feel like there are things that are happening that maybe we're just not all aware about. And I mean, when I was knocking on doors, a lot of people didn't know that there's a $6 million lawsuit against us. And whether you get into the right or the wrong, what's the reason for it, whatever the case may be, we should be talking. We're not. The current council leadership has denied their counsel to talk to the counsel that's suing. There's no mediation going on, there's no discussion, and I don't want to jeopardize $6 million worth of our tax dollars on the principle that we may win. And the issue is, quite frankly, a little strange because your planning commission and our current town staff all recommended that the problem that occurred be passed, and our council voted it down. And that concerns me. We had a $550,000 leftover cash fund. I don't know if you knew this, it was discussed in a planning commission meeting. There's a lot of things you could do with $550,000. And the council decided to put it into a grant that the town had won to invest in a sidewalk from Skyline High School up to the top of the hill to the 7-Eleven. And it's $3.2 million, something like it, $3.1 million. And it won't be built for 3 or 4 years. And we took 500 and some odd dollars, 4,000 of that, and we put it away for that. And there's so many other things we could have done. We could have hired a town engineer. We don't have one. We could have taken care of some of our dilapidated buildings that need to be torn down so we can put liens against the landlord. There's a lot of cool things that we could have done with that cash and kept some promises that were broken as well. But you really don't know about it because it was put in what's called a consent agenda. So at the planning meeting, it's just listed as a line item down at the bottom, and the councilman votes on 5 or 6 items and it passes. There's no discussion in front of you at a town council meeting. So these are things, I mean, I love our town, and I think for the most part, we've got a lot of great things to celebrate, 99% of it. I'm just talking about the 1% that kind of irks me a little bit. And I think those are problems. We need better transparency, and we definitely need to deal with the water.
All right. Well, it sounds like water is an issue, so let's touch on that real quick, just for a few minutes. It's come up on social media and through the rumor mill that's possibly maybe we have plenty of water, we just have a distribution problem. We can't get to it, like we've talked about, where it is. So is it a distribution problem? Is it a source problem? Or both? What do you think, Glenn?
It's really both. Right now, we rely on the South Fork of the Shenandoah River. That's where we withdraw water that we process, and that's what we get on our homes and businesses. Depending on the flow of the river, as it slows, our permit for withdrawing lowers. So as the river slows down, the amount that we can withdraw from it slows down. So we get a need for more water than our permit allows. It's not on the making of making of the water, the cleansing treatment of the water, nor getting it out for the most part. There are some distribution issues, Mike, that we can touch on, but it's sourced primarily. Now, with that, again, we've talked about the quarries. They could be studied. Stevens City, Frederick County Water Department pulls from a quarry. Interestingly enough, quarry water is not surface water where the river is. So the type of treatment, it has to go through less treatment than the river source. The other thing is if you drill a well, it's the same thing, again, not surface water. So we could look at those options. We could look at an immediate fix of buying a tractor trailer with a tanker, and during those months we need more water, hauling water from the quarry, take it right up on top of the hill and dump it in. Is that an expense? Yes, but we're not going into emergency rationing, which we were just a week or so from that last year and got very close to it again this year. That's a short-term solution. There's water. We could transport it up there during the drought months and have it to fulfill our obligation to provide water not only to our town, but to the 522 corridor, back from an agreement between the town and the county many years ago. Now, I brought up one thing at council. When we go into drought conditions, you can't wash your car, you can't water your yard, you can't water your garden. But folks living in Blue Ridge Shadows or Henselstone off of Duck Street, that's outside our town, but has water, can. We have no mechanism outside our corporate limits other than cutting the water off. I can't ever see that going on. But we have no mechanism to get our county water and sewer users to cut back on their use. Now, the mayor did bring that up at the last county town liaison meeting, where that will go. I don't know, but we're all in this together. It's not just a town issue or a county issue, it's wherever we have water and sewer, we need to have enough of it. And yes, we do have development coming. We're told that we have the water process there in the infrastructure. The source is what's going to be problematic for us.
Walt, you want to add something?
There's really not a lot to add, because the homework has actually been done. And we're in the process of bringing that information to the light of the town council, to the light of the public. And we have to explain that totally to all of the people that are interested. I want to be able to go flush my toilet and it works. That's all I want. And I don't think that I'm asking too much from the county to be able to do that. I want to be able to get a glass of water when I want it. But there's a cost associated with it all. And the cost is manageable, it is plannable, and we have to look at short-term solutions and we have to look at long-term solutions. It's all about the dollars when it really gets down to it. I don't want to be without water. I don't think anybody in here does. And the only way that we're going to solve it is to actually step into that water and that fire and confront the problem head on and say, this is what we're going to do. And we have to say, this is what we're going to do, and actually do it, not kick it down the road, because we can't get a consensus of all of the people that need to be part of be the players. The players have to all be on the same page, pointed in the same direction, and stand up and look in that direction and say, we're going after water. Thank you.
Mike, may I follow up on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Walt made a very good point, and I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I think about inaction. It's like your home. You know you got a leak in the roof, but that's a lot of money. That's $10,000. And years go by, and the leak gets worse until finally you're forced to pay the piper, and now it's $20,000 because you didn't take care of it when you should have. The problem becomes inflation and everything else. And this isn't just this town council's fault. The can was kicked down the road when the agreement was made to bring Dominion Power, the power station out there. One of the obligations for that power plant coming here was to build a redundant water line. In other words, we have one water line that goes out of town all the way to Fairgrounds Road and serves that area. The power company said, we're going to put these millions of dollars here and build this power plant. We require a redundant line. And the town is now in the process of doing it. We've had our share of problems with that and getting right-of-ways. We've bore under the river out there at the country club. You might have seen that. And we're real close, I'm told, in February of completing the redundant water line. That was a requirement by Dominion when that was signed off, I don't know, 8 years ago. That water line at the time would have cost $8 million. You know what it's costing us now? In excess of $20 million. So, just like your roof, when you kick the can down the road, and we're all three business people, 2 of us are retired, but we have common sense. When you kick the can down the road, it's always going to bite you in the butt and cost you more. What was that commercial? You can pay for it now, or you can pay for it later. Thank you.
Real quick. I just say we need to be looking at more than one source. I mean, I don't want to be repetitive, but it's great that we're talking about McKay Springs. You know, when it was purchased, I know the landowners that sold it. There was a battle. a lot of you, if you didn't live here, there was a battle between the county and the town as to who was gonna get it. The town got it, and the original thought process was they'd put a reservoir on the site, or that they would put a station there to serve the corridor. Well, none of those things happened, it's just a source sitting out there. But it's great to be talking about it, but I just feel like we should be looking at other issues. We just had a hurricane come through here. Imagine if we'd had a 20-foot deep, empty hole alongside the river that is 20 acres in size, that the river would have flown over the banks and filled it up with water. It'd still be sitting there right now. Wouldn't have cost us a dime to fill it, and ultimately, I just want to see us go in other sources. That's it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. So we've talked about water. How about housing? Let's talk about housing. And if we have a housing problem, if we do, how are we going to correct it? Tom, why don't you start there?
Oh, you throw me into the gauntlet. Thank you on that one. So the housing, there is a problem. I mean, fortunately, some folks just submitted some plans for affordable housing to go up. I believe it's going to go in behind. It's just in discussion, but the thought process is that we go in out behind Rural King. What a great idea. What a great place to put it. That land needs to be developed. It's there, and you know we need affordable housing. There's a discussion about by right housing, and there are people that own, you know, out on Happy Creek Road. That's the last bit of land that we have in Front Royal to be developed. That's it. Once that's gone, it's gone. There's not going to be any large parcels of land. You know, once leaches run and Happy Creek Road fill up, that's it. That's as large as your community's going to get, unless we put in a 20-story condo somewhere. And ultimately, by right housing allows you to put 2 houses on the acreage, on 1 acre. So it's a half-acre lot. And builders, things have changed. COVID changed a lot. Prices of building materials. 10 years ago, you could build a house for about $150 a square foot. The same house now costs you $260 a square foot. And the builder has to recoup that money somewhere. So builders come back and say, you know what? If we only put 2 houses on an acre, we've got to build $700,000 home there to recoup our investment. And I get that. I understand that. But we don't need mansions like that everywhere. I mean, I looked, just before I came here, while I was in the car, that's not a bad thing. Unfortunately, I did it while I was sitting at the stoplight. There are 4 properties for sale right now in Front Royal. 4, I mean, there's a lot more than that. I just pulled 4 examples. Rivermont Drive, $749,000 for a 1,400 square foot house on 2 acres. On Stewart Drive, $475,000 for a house sitting on 1/4 of an acre. That's a big difference to get a house down in the $400,000 range. Here's another one on Happy Ridge Drive, brand new, sitting there for sale right now. Just a hair under $542,000. So why is Tom saying that? And here's why I'm saying that. If you allow a builder to put, say, a 3rd house on an acre, and it's not Fairfaxing, I mean, I've been titled Mr. Fairfaxing or Mr. Loudoun County. I live in town in Williamsburg Estates. I've lived there for 29 years. And I sit on a 1/4 acre of land. I have an incredible neighborhood. My kids grew up with all the other kids in the neighborhood. They went to Warren County High School. We're all big, all of our neighbors, we're just a big neighborhood. There's nothing wrong with that. Why do we want to deny that to others? If you put a 3rd house on there, then the builder doesn't have to build a $750,000 McMansion to recoup his money. He could build 3, $450,000 houses. And unfortunately, folks, that's where we're at. I pulled up the median income of a home in Virginia. This is an average across the state of Virginia, $466,000. The USA is just a hair under $450,000. So $450,000 homes, folks, we all bought our home. I mean, I'm sitting on a pretty good amount of cash if I ever sell. But we all bought our home back when it was really affordable. It's much more affordable now. That's why young people are having a hard time buying a house. And it isn't that the developers are greedy. It's costing twice as much to build it. So the only way to keep the housing prices down, and I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to go on social media tomorrow and twist everything I'm saying. The only way to keep the prices of houses down is to allow that builder to put a third one on there. And now you got a third of an acre to a house. Like I said, most of the neighborhoods in Williamsburg Estates, Vaught Estates, I looked at all over. They're mostly quarter-acre lots or less. They mostly sit on 10,000 square foot lots, and that's a quarter of an acre. So you put 3 homes on there. Now you got 3 homes paying property tax. Now you got 3 homes contributing to our tax base. Taxes are going to go up in Front Royal. I applaud the current council for being able to maintain. But 4 years ago, when the last tax happened, a tire for a dump truck was $320. That same tire now is $800. Remember when wages were down in the 15s and the 10s and the 18s? Those wages are now 25, 35. Everything's gone up. So that means, we haven't been able to invest in the future. We're maintaining our own. So the only way to do that is have a co-op. We all share in the tax burden. Every town resident raised their hand. We are all paying into the pool to operate our town. And that's wonderful. I'd like to have a few more people in there to help us do that. I'm not asking for the floodgates to open. I'm asking for families to be able to come in and on a lot that basically can handle 3 or 4 houses without any problem. And the cool thing that happens is when you allow that builder to do that, they give you enticements. And enticements is what this lawsuit is all about. They give you what's called proffers. And they'll sit there and say, if you allow us to do this, we're going to contribute a certain amount of money per house to your well-being. So you can put it towards water, you can put it towards parks, you can put it towards whatever you want. They also contribute the same amount of money to the county to pay for the kids that might be in the schools. One of the litigation points we got going on right now is that a 55 and over community wanted to come into town on a development on Leach's Run. And that was shot down. Do you know that nobody in a 55 over community has kids going to your schools if they're still paying into the county? So that's additional funding for the schools. So without elongating it anymore, it's a big thing. I am not for opening the floodgates. I'm just basically saying, can't we give the folks that build out there the same things that we have right there in Vaught Estates or in Williamsburg Estates, around the Moose Lodge or something like that? It's a great neighborhood. I can't see it being destroyed.
All right. Walt, or who's next here? Wants to add? Anyone else want to chime in on housing? Or you think we beat that to death?
No.
Go ahead, Walt. Make a short story
We
long.
can beat this more.
Sure we can.
I'm concerned about housing, like everybody is in this area. I go through positive and negative thoughts on it. Positive, we bring people in that are retired people that don't need, we don't need them to have children in school. They're not there. But they're developing and providing dollars and taxes into the system that allows us to keep our schools strong. But I also look at how many people that are living in this community that can't afford a house. I see on social media, and I hate to use social media as my key, but I read it every day, and I always, without a day going by, I want to hear somebody tell me that they want a house that is $1,600 a month rent. They're asking for $650, $750, $800. They can afford it. That's what they can afford. Now, if we don't have housing for them, we lose some level on our table, and our table wobbles. And they're going to be learning the trade that they have chosen to be in, be it a policeman, fireman, EMT person, a teacher, even the people in the stores, the retail shops. They're getting somewhat close to minimum wage, and they can't even afford to live here. But they can live in Strasburg, and they're willing to drive over here to come to work. Again, it's a situation to where we realize that we have a problem, we have a solution. Maybe it's adding another house to an acre of land. Maybe it's building more condominiums or apartments. Maybe it's building up instead of out. Step into the problem and help solve it. And a new council can help do that. Will we solve it tomorrow? No. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen over a period of time where we develop ourselves and bring us into a situation to where we've got things that people want. When we do this, we give the industry that's trying to come to town the ability to have the workforce that's here, that's being trained here, that's developing the young people to be the leaders of our community and valued members of the society, not driving them away because we train them, they learn how to do it, they go to someplace else where they can live or commute back and forth because they're still living with mom and dad, and they're not providing to us any additional tax dollars. Thank you.
All right.
No, I've got.
I'm sure you have something to say about that, Glenn.
Probably do. First of all, I feel like I've got to make sure everybody understands development by right means that whatever as Tom said earlier, in our town it says one house on a half-acre land. That's by right. So if you own 100 acres, you can build 200 houses, plain and simple. Number of acres divided by 2. By right means you do not pay anything to the town nor the county, because the town's in the county, other than your fees to hook up to the water and sewer and the electric. So by right development currently is going on. And the town's kind of gotten a black eye over this recent development I'll touch on quickly, but everybody says the town is overdeveloping, the town is overdeveloping. And you can check my source out on this, but the county building department, county building from 2018 to 2023, we have built in the county 844 houses by right. Okay? And of course, in the county, they drill a well, they put in a septic, whatever, and pay to hook on electric. In the town, in that same period, infill mostly development, but some new development, 158. Again, by right. Nobody gets any proffers for the schools, fire and rescue, any of those things. Okay? That's what by right means. So, recently, there was a development on Marshall Glen out on Happy Creek. The background is the EDA owned that money, or owned that land. They took it from Jennifer McDonald. Everybody knows who she is, right? Oh, you're informed. All right, so they had a piece of land. We know everything's on a fire sale with EDA because they owe more than they own. They have to get money back. And I talked to George Klein, the local builder, because one of the things said, well, you're not letting your local builders build. George said to me, Glenn, we're all as busy as we want to be, and we don't have the capacity to go out and build 84 houses by right. You know, if we wanted to buy the property, it was open, you or I could have bought it if we had the money. So, a developer bought it, Rappahannock LLC. And Rappahannock said, by right, we can build 82 houses. And by right means they don't pay anything at all. However, if you will rezone it and allow us to build 22 more houses for a total of 104, 104 houses will gain over $1 million in cash and property proffers for the town and the county. 22 houses. By that, the schools are going to receive over 300 and some thousand. The town is going to receive a similar amount to do with as it wants. They are proffering. They are giving the town the right of way. And this is the property along Happy Creek that goes into that bad curve that's very narrow. It's been on the town's radar for 25 or more years to widen it. That's Happy Creek Phase 2. The plan's on file down there. Then there's a Phase 3 further. So, as a council, we had to make a decision. 84 or 82 by right, or for 22 more houses, and they're going to put in a playground and do some other things, 2 entrances. Do we take the deal or not? Some would say, no, we don't want a Fairfax Front Royal, 22 houses. Okay, well, I think it would have been criminal, absolutely criminal not to have taken that money for 22 houses. And you can feel different. We'll agree to disagree, but I'm not going to hate you or throw eggs at your house. That's one thing about development. Now, meanwhile, the town of Front Royal has 5 or 6 townhouse projects going on in their infancy, or they're under construction, or they haven't been launched yet. And we're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 68 new townhomes in the next 2 years, depending on, and these are mostly local builders, how fast they can build them. By right. Okay? They're going to add to the schools, by right, pay nothing. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I want you to be educated on what's going on. Now, Tom's already mentioned there is a property for behind Rural King coming up to the Planning Commission. You should all weigh in on this, which will be apartments. There will be some rent control. There will be regular, and there will be handicap accessible. And they are where comprehensive planning say they should be. They're right there at the shopping center. So people who don't have a car, they can walk to Martin's, get their groceries, get almost do their banking right there. We'll see what happens with the Planning Commission. Now, to the original question, affordable housing, I ran on that last year. We're not going to have it, other than apartments. And what Walt said is true. We're not going to have it because nobody is going to buy a piece of land and put small houses on it with a profit margin of maybe $20,000 each, when they're making well over $100,000 building $400,000 to $700,000 houses. That's going to take some sort of government intervention where the county and the town work together, perhaps take the Avtex parking lot, which who knows who owns that anymore, I'm not sure, but you can make a nice little community down there with $175,000 to $125,000 houses. Would they be row houses on postage stamps? Yes, but if you want affordable home ownership housing, that's one way to do it. But it's not going to just happen out of the builder's generosity, because when you can make hundreds of thousands versus 20, 30, you're a businessman, what are you going to do?
All right, thank you.
Can I have
Walt?
one more?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All of y'all people here in this room know that development's coming. It is coming, and there's nothing that we can do to stop it, because people are moving out here, whether it be $750,000 homes or whether it be $200,000 homes. They're coming. Now, me personally, I would rather have a development that comes that I can manage instead of them just coming in and building the properties. And you're out of control. Then you're looking at Fairfaxing. Then you're looking at Loudon. We have to manage the process of the construction and providing housing for our people. And if we don't do it, we lose. They'll walk all over us. It's happened in other areas already.
Thank you, gentlemen. I was going to be talking about infrastructure and business and trash, but I think what we ought to do is get with Rob and get some of the questions that we've got from the audience, and I'm sure some of those will come into some of these other things we have, or we'll be here. Rick will be kicking us out. So.
All right, okay, awesome. Good time to come up for air a little bit. And first, I just want to acknowledge, thank you for the breadth of the answers that we've received tonight, because this is great. It really is.
All right, so you have some questions?
We're about at the hour mark, so I'm just going to ask our candidates to keep the answers, if they can, a little bit shorter, just so we can get through more of the audience questions. So I'll start with one from the audience that relates to this topic. On some major land use decisions, the council goes against the planning commission recommendations. So this has come through the planning department, through the planning commission, it gets brought to council ultimately for a vote, but it's gone against the recommendation of planning commission. Any thoughts on why that happens and
That happens
Is that a good
because
or
the
bad
council has a different vision than the planning commission. I served on the planning commission well over 10 years, and the planning commission does the heavy lifting for council. They research it, they have the experts, they have the developers, they listen to citizens' input, and then they make a decision based on code and ordinance. They then pass the recommendation on to council, and council can approve it or not approve it. And in many instances, council has approved SUPs, that's been the biggest thing, special use permits, which went against the code. So my argument is, you don't like the ordinance code, change it, but don't vote against your planning commission who does it by the rules.
I honestly don't have anything else to add, because that's the way that I understand it as well.
I'll be quick. All right, pretty quick sometimes. So this all comes back into development and having it planned out and managing it properly. So ultimately, there was a development, they're called Planned Neighborhood Developments, PNDs. And one was applied for up by the hospital. Now, this wasn't some big developer. This was local builders that wanted to go in and increase the density. You would have turned in off of Leach's Run into the neighborhood, and you would have come out a different way. This isn't Fairfaxing, this is a neighborhood that you would never ever go into unless you're dropping your child off at a birthday party or you're going over to watch the game on Sunday. And the local builders wanted to do a planned neighborhood development. Would have hired local carpenters, local plumbers, local electricians, bought basically all their supplies from 84 Lumber or from Lowe's. All of that money would have stayed here. So all this talk about, oh, we don't want to see these big developers come in, which is what's going to happen out at Rappahannock because none of the local builders could pull it. We turned that down. Even though staff and even though planning commission said this is exactly what we're looking for. We recommend it. The current council, which is basically 6 people, and the mayor have continuously gone against the planning commission and staff recommendations. And I don't understand why they think they're smarter. You've had a lot of turnover on planning commission because people were frustrated. I'm putting my time in there, I'm doing all this work, and then you're not even listening to me. And so, again, stories get twisted around, things are said, but ultimately, I don't know what made them smarter than people that are doing all the research, that are putting in all the time behind the scenes, and they're advising me as a councilman, we recommend you do this. And then they choose not to.
I can relate to that. I was on the planning commission, and that was 20 years ago, and it happened then, so not a lot has changed. All right, Rob, you have another question for us?
Yeah, just while we're still on the topic of property and land use, I have 3 or 4 questions in here about blighted properties, or derelict properties, whatever the proper term is these days. How come, as a town, we can't seem to figure out whether it's code enforcement or a method by which we can get some of these blighted properties improved, the beautification of the town?
Yeah, that's happened. That's been on the agenda for quite a long time. We've talked about it. I think we've talked it to death at council members, and some of the answers, I know there's some state, we're a Dillon state, so we have to get permission from the state to do things. But someone want to address that? Tom, why don't you start with you?
Well, just real quick, they have rights. Who is determining the property is nasty? It has to be a public safety issue. And then if it's a public safety issue, then the town can do something. But until that point arises, there were 3 homes here in Front Royal that had burned, and the town wanted to take action against those folks to get them cleaned up. They couldn't take action because there was no money to tear the home down, to pay the contractor to tear it down, and then to sue the landowner. I mean, the contractor that tears it down is going to get us $20,000 or whatever he charges, and then you have to wait until a lawsuit and a lien against the landowner pays it back. There was no money to do that. So those properties were standing. Fortunately, you saw one torn down in Riverton, and that landowner complied and got it done. So, but the law is pretty strict. I mean, I'm not going to pick on some of the landowners tonight. Some of them support me, some don't. But there are properties in town right now, but because the doors are boarded up and the windows are closed, it doesn't pose a safety issue. And the answer to, I mean, there are some communities that go after that, but right now Front Royal's hands are tied on that. And we've got to find a way to address it a little bit better. I'd love to be able to get rid of upholstered sofas on the front porch. Haven't figured that one out yet, but we'll see.
It all boils down to ordinances and what we can and can't do, and our backbone to do that. So when I got on council, and that was probably the third thing on my platform, was these blighted buildings. And blight, you know, some of us interpret blight differently. I look at it as if it's an ugly, unmaintained property that's an eyesore, then it's blighted. My wife will tell you, we've been married 46 years and the same property has been there for 46 years. But we did identify 5 properties that had burnt. They were a public nuisance and a safety issue. We did not have funds in the budget. We took them out for whatever reason. In this budget cycle, we took them out. So yes, we find a property that's blighted, it's burned, it's a health and safety hazard, so we have the right to go in and tear it down and put a lien on the property. But if you don't have the cash sitting around to do it, you're not going to do it. Now, planning and zoning, working with the owners of these properties, Tom mentioned the Route 55 property, that's been 4 or 5 years burnt, sitting out there, eyesore, and now we had people living in it. That was tore down last week at no cost to the taxpayers because they want to redevelop it. They're going to put townhouses there. Osage Street burned down. I was down there campaigning the other day. We've got to do something with it. Habitat for Humanity is in the process of taking ownership of it, but do they have the money immediately to go in, raise the buildings, and take the safety hazard away? Don't know. West 18th Street, I'm told that building is going to be taken down, and Blue Ridge, where that lovely old lady lost her life. There is a new owner of the property, and they're working with the BAR, the Board of Architectural Review, to tear that house down and replace it with new construction. But until that gets resolved through the BAR, the builder's not going to raise the building and then move off of it and move back on. That doesn't make sense. That's how some of these things happen. If we had a fund for that, we could go in immediately, resolve the issue, put a lien on the property, and go on about our business. If we had a building code enforcement program in the town, we could do a lot more about blight and a lot of things that people have told me, these apartment buildings. But under our current ordinances, we can't go into an apartment building unless it is, you're invited. And those people are afraid if we come in, our inspector comes in and sees the conditions of squander and the roof leaking and everything, we'll condemn the building. Where will they live? You know, it's a catch-22.
I hear some of the same things that everybody else is hearing. My thought is, you have to, if it's unsafe, it has to be changed. If we have ordinances that are causing a problem, let's change the ordinance. And we have to go through the process of doing that, and that's going to take time too. And what are we going to do with the people that are in those positions that are just trying to get by? Getting by is not good enough. We got to be able to allow our residents and our community to grow and prosper. And they can't do it without a house over their head. May not be the house that we want, may not be the house that's going to look good, but it's the house that they're living in, and they're living there. Now, I'm all for, if the house is falling apart and it's unsafe, let's do everything within our power to get rid of it, some way or another. And if it comes to changing the ordinance, let's step forward, get the people together that can make that change and make it happen.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. It sounds like all these issues are really boils down to one thing, and that's leadership. Somebody to have a vision and get on something and then work towards getting it accomplished. All right, Rob, what do you have?
Good, and I just had one comment on, thank you for your answers on that. You each focused on the enforcement side of that problem. Is there anything on the incentive side that the town government could do to spur this beautification along?
Well, yes, there are grants we could be looking for I'm going to go there, even though I've been told not to. The Afton Inn is the biggest eyesore in town. I'm told that by multiple people. Thank you, Colonel. They got caught up in the EDA thing with Jennifer McDonald, I'm told. They didn't get the amount of money they needed. They started a project. Council and FREBA, the town's EDA, has toured that building in twos, so it doesn't meet a requirement of a meeting. We toured it. We see that they've put $250,000 inside the building. The building's stabilized. Concrete, steel, blocks. The brick won't fall out on the street. The building should have been torn down 40 years ago, but we're where we're at today. The only way that building's going to get done is that the owner cannot do it at 9% interest rate that we're seeing right now in the commercial industry. You can't borrow money at 9%, finish it, and then make money off of it. So what could we do as an organization? We could look for grants. We could look for ways of helping them. Now, I'm going to be clear about this. No tax dollars are to be used on the Afton Inn. People have repeatedly said, oh, you're talking about taking tax dollars. No, but we're not farming for the gold that's out there to get a facility like that done. Main Street, Front Royal, corner of Royal and Main, the most welcoming or not welcoming building in town. There are ways we could go about doing it if it becomes a priority. I'm going to tell you, we all toured it, shook our heads, and we never talked about it afterwards.
I'll be quick again.
Okay.
Being last makes it go fast. Ultimately, in knocking on doors, I would say, you knock on 10 doors to talk to 2 people. And when you get to talk to 2 people, over a period of an hour, maybe you talk to 8 or 9. Over half the time, they said, what the heck can you do about the Afton Inn? What an eyesore. It's ugly, da-da-da. So I've suggested, if you've watched my videos, you'll see it in there. I've researched it. I've looked into it. This owner is stuck right now on interest rates. And amazingly, he was trying to qualify for a USDA loan that would have given me some like 3.5% money. I don't quote me on that. But I talked to the owner today. Other than someone accepting a tour, he said, no one's ever called me from the town, and he thanked me for calling. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to be your mayor. I said, but I do serve on the Economic Development Authority of Front Royal, not the one that's in trouble, but FREBA. And I said, I promise you that I'll at least try to look for things. And what I told him was this, and I've said this publicly, there are municipal grants. These aren't grants that are designed, there are grants for the poor, there are grants for affordable housing, there are grants to put in boat landings. But there are also grants that are designed to put into your infrastructure. In 2016, the town of Front Royal only had access to this. None of the builders did, what I'm about to describe. And in 2016, the town garnered over $700,000 in the side grant program. They got the money, and then they basically went out to the local businessmen and said this, we're going to give you money to put towards your building, but you've got to match it. And quite a few of us took advantage of that. And I mean, I needed to do about $100,000 worth of work to my building. And to have $50,000 put into it was huge. And I qualified for one of those grants. And there were probably about another 15 business people that did. We had to apply to the town for it. So without getting into a lot, there's money out there that is not Front Royal tax dollars. But somebody in the town staff has to apply for the money. So that's where there is time and energy from staff. But look at the reward. Look at the fact that if we could get this man, $800,000 to match the other $800,000 that he needs, or whatever the dollar amount is. He told me today, I can get that property done in 9 months. And he said, I already have renters to go into it. I'm not sure what the loss is there. Again, people love to attack, people love to pounce. We have the centerpiece of our town. It's seen by everybody that comes through Front Royal. It's just sitting there looking like it's looked for 40 years. Maybe we can do something about it. Maybe we can't, but maybe we can at least try. And for me to be the first one that's called him, beside the Planning Commission, I was pretty surprised by that. And he thanked me profusely, and again, he says, I hope you win, because at least I have a feeling that you're going to try to help us out. So,
All right, Rob, you got any more?
Sure. Yeah, I think the last question sort of related to property and land uses we've been covering here for a bit. The question says, month after month, I read about multiple properties being approved as short-term tourist rentals. As someone who's lived in 8 states and has seen otherwise affordable properties become short-term rentals, as investors outbid the local workforce, your teachers, law enforcement, first responders, people really investing in your community, is there a point at which the town could put a limit to this, or feels like there's enough of that on the market?
The county has that as well. And in my mind, it's pretty simple. If you don't like it, change it. If the ordinance, when somebody goes in and applies for a short-term tourist rental, they have an application process. That application process takes time and energy from the planning commission that's going to be doing the legwork for all of that. They're going to approve it or reject it. If they meet all of the rules and all of the checkbox marks in that application, the chances are very good it's going to be approved. Now, we, as town council people, we have to establish the boundaries. And if the boundaries are lax enough to where somebody can outbid it or becomes more reasonable for an investor to do it than a local person, then it's going to happen that way. We got to think about how we're making those applications and how we're getting the check marks checked off. If it becomes too difficult, they will walk away.
And there's a lot of pros to short-term rentals as well,
Yes, there are.
all right? Anybody else want to touch on short-term? I know you, all right?
Yeah, and one of my favorite subjects, not, since I've been on the council, short-term rentals, in my opinion, are taking housing out of our inventory. And we know that there's not enough houses out there. Interesting statistic in the town of Front Royal, 65% of the properties are rentals. Home ownership's only 35%, and maybe you don't know what comes with that. So I learned a dirty little secret.
hold the microphone away a little bit.
I learned a dirty little secret going through these SUPs once I left the planning commission. I got on council. We don't always know when we're collecting lodging tax. So I asked a question, well, why don't we know? Well, they'll rent their house to, I don't know what, Airbnb or something. If they send a check in, they don't put an address on it. We send it right back to them. We don't know who it is. So when I asked the question, well, how big a problem this is, nobody could answer the question, how many are we collecting? And I'm still not sure that that's legal that they can answer, but they will not answer me, how many properties are we collecting lodging tax from? We do it with the motels. When the conversion of the old Quality Inn down here, one of my associates screamed, oh, we're going to lose their lodging tax. Ends up that wasn't a whole lot of money, plus we're trying to turn that into affordable housing. But I said, and I've talked to the mayor about putting it on the agenda to put a moratorium on it until we can figure out how to collect the blooming tax off of it. I think it's as simple as writing something in the code. When you do this, thou shalt send to the finance director monthly a report and remit the rentals. But they would tell you, oh, it's a problem in Virginia Beach and Richmond, and nobody knows what they're collecting, plus the people doing it under the table don't go through the SUPs. Then stop it. Why are we taking housing out of our inventory for our working poor in many cases and renting it, and we don't even get the lodging tax promised to us? And I'm not saying these are bad people. They've made an investment. But what about the taxpayers? What about you guys?
All right, Rob, got another one?
The question is, Can you each speak to your personal values and how they do or would not affect your service in public office?
Okay, Tom, why don't you start with that one?
I was grabbing the microphone. I'll try to be quick again. Personal values. About 2 weeks ago, I got attacked on social media. I got pretty thick skin. Ultimately, I listened to what they had to, I read what they had to say. And it went back and forth. And I learned a long time ago, being in business, being in management, don't get into the fray. Stay away from the fray. And I learned that as the general manager of Shenandoah County Fair. I was on a hit list for having the pig scramble contest there. But so I didn't get into the fray. But when my character got attacked, I got into the fray. Basically, I was called a liar when I had the facts behind me. So I wrote, I challenged, I presented the facts, go back to this meeting, go back to this, and all of a sudden they dropped the subject and they moved on to something else and started challenging me on other things, and then I got out of the fray. Went back to my own. I've come from a family of honorable men. My dad was Stuart Eshelman. My uncles were Wayne Eshelman, Compton Eshelman, an aunt named Virginia. They all instilled in me from childhood character and trust. So maybe sometimes I fail at character, maybe I get angry or something, but I'll never lie. And I don't want that attacked. So from those values, I attended Marlow Heights Baptist Church. From being, my mom sang in the choir, dad was a school teacher, and that's what I was brought up on. And then when my wife and I lived in Charleston, we attended a church there. My wife got baptized in the ocean in Charleston, South Carolina, so that was kind of cool. And we raised our kids that way. So I do have a Christian background. And I was asked the question by somebody, are you going to make decisions based on that? And I answered it in a positive way, but I wanted to be honest about it. I said, the Christian idea is not going to be the answer, but I am going to pray for guidance. I am going to pray to making a decision for this community that is best for the community, and I'm going to ask for that guidance. And so the main thing is living on my family's character. That's probably one of my biggest values, and having a Christian faith to pray and ask for assistance when it's needed, but not for the answers, just for the assistance. Hopefully that answers the question, whoever asked it. I'm not going to get too much more detail, but.
Okay. Glenn?
Well, ditto. A lot of what Tom said is, where I'm coming from, where my faith and my belief system is. I think we're elected by you all to make the very best decisions for all the citizens. We're all three sitting up here as independents. There's a reason for that, and that is because politics have taken too large of a place in how our town is being run. I promise you, if elected, I will represent all 15,000 of you, whether you voted for me, you didn't even vote, because that's the way I am. I will come out and look at your situation. I was up on Bel Air Avenue today. We're putting in curb and gutter. I don't have an engineering background, but I can say I see a problem coming there for a homeowner and water runoff and things like that. So once Joe comes back from his vacation, I'll be having a decision, or a discussion rather, with him. I will come out and see what your problem is. I'm interested in it and how it can be resolved. I will look for a win-win situation. The three of us being in business, you always look for a win-win. It's not us versus them. How can we make this work for everybody? I see Colonel Lundberg back here. I was on Planning Commission. There was a rezoning request out Shenandoah Shores Road. And we know repeatedly the trains block the tracks there. That makes egress seriously a problem. And this gentleman wanted to rezone his property for a higher density. I can understand that. We've gone through, less land, a house, more money, but the infrastructure didn't exist. We never fulfilled the promise of building the flower. So on the Planning Commission, we were split 2-2. We were absent a person. 2 of us voted against it. And while it met the comp plan, while it met everything else, infrastructure, in my mind, I was not going to exasperate a worse situation. And that's how I make my decisions. I study it, I look at it, I do pray over it. But I'm going to make the decision that I feel is in all of our best interest.
The best interest of the community is probably one of the most important things that any one of us has to deal with. Now, from an individual point of view, what is going on in a particular situation may not be something that I totally agree with, and I'll be honest with that. But it's also something that I have to look at from a town council point of view or a management point of view that says, is it right for the community? And I've said this before, if there's an application process that goes along with it, does it match the application? And for me personally to make a decision based upon the facts, not what I necessarily agree with, yeah, I'm going to pray over it because I think it's important. But it's the decision that's going to affect everybody, not just a group, a sect, a community, an individual. It's not going to happen that way with me. I don't want my freedom to be attacked, or anybody trying to bully me into doing something or saying something that I don't necessarily can say. I can only tell you that I will look at the facts, do the research on it, and stand behind what I say because I feel it's the right thing to do for all of us. Not just, definitely not for me. Because there are situations that's going to happen, and I'm going to have to go with what the people want. And my thought process is not going to change because you want it to. If y'all want it to, that's where it changes. Because I can think strategically about it and believe that I understand the situation. And somebody that is totally against it or totally for it can change my mind because they know more than I do, and I'm willing to listen. The old saying, I've got 2 ears and I've got 1 mouth, and I listen more than I talk. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. You've got one more you want to do?
One more, if that's all right.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll let you have
I
one
know
more.
we're coming up on an hour and
Yeah,
15
we
minutes,
need to close it
30
down.
minutes here. Last question. We hear the term business friendly a lot, especially when folks are running for office. We know our commercial tax base helps to offset the burden of the residential taxpayer. But what can a town government do to be business friendly in a more tangible way?
Let me add one thing too about that, because that was something that a lot of people have run on. You know, the old joke is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. You know, maybe that needs to be true. And we know if you've ever dealt with local government or any government, the first word out of their mouth is always no. And so let's see what these gentlemen have to say about being business friendly, you know.
When I sit back and I think about businesses coming to town, and one of the things that the town used to do, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. There used to be a process that a new business that would come into the town office, they would say, I'm here to open up XYZ. How do I do that? And there would be people that their specific job was to help them develop their business. And because their business is important. Maybe it won't work the way that they want it to work, but they're willing to listen to what the the town has and what they need to do to make their business successful, to get them started. So one of the simplest things that I could do is say, let's develop a single point of contact for any business that wants to come into town and help walk them through the process. Here's your application. Here are the people that you talk to. Here's the phone numbers. Here's the process. To my knowledge, we don't do that anymore. And to me, that's one of the most simplest things in the world to get done, is to help somebody. And we're helping our business. We are being business friendly when we do that. Thank you.
To be business friendly, I would say ditto to everything that Walt's already mentioned. In the business world, you have to make decisions and move on them. When businesses come to us with a plan, an idea, or something, we need to be all the help we can to them. When we develop and grow businesses, it offsets our taxes. In other words, the growth of business is good for residents because they carry a larger part of the tax bill. How do we do it? We change the process where people are more apt to want to do business in Front Royal. We do have somewhat of a reputation for being difficult to deal with. Part of it has to do with fairness. We got plenty of vape shops, so they didn't have a problem doing business. But, we're addressing that now, after we have 17 of them. And, you would think we'd had over the bridge, welcome to Front Royal, open your vape shop. I don't know. But fairness for all people, the respect for people and their ideas and what they want to do, and how can we get them across the finish line, because that's going to help us all. Incentify. Tom's part of, and Rick Novak and other downtown business people are part of this FREBA. And they've rebranded it the Downtown
Business Development Board.
Yeah, the nuance is a little bit different, but they're meeting monthly, trying to find ways to slimline the process, to try to encourage people to come here. They just did a request to bring in a retail development strategy and inventory all the properties. You have good, knowledgeable citizens working for that. When it lands with the town council is where you have the problem, because most of the people on council are not business people. They're honorable people as far as I know, but they've never had to work for a company turning a profit. They've worked for nonprofits. They've been in other occupations where they didn't have to make decisions that affected other people, decisions that affect the bottom line. And we set up here as 3 business people that understand what it takes. And we will, I'm going to speak for everybody, we will do our darndest, if elected, to make sure we become a business-friendly town.
Make it short.
Can you repeat the question again? What was it? Did you ask it, Rob?
What can we do to be more business friendly?
Okay, good deal. Being a businessman in Front Royal, and I can go back through experiences that I've had with Front Royal, either through permitting process, even through naming of a business. 20 years ago, my wife and I wanted to open a driving school in Front Royal. And so I went through the application process, put in all the things that I had to do. I had to ask questions and go from point A to point B. You have to go to the town of Front Royal, then you have to go to Warren County. Oh, no, you got to go back to, it's archaic. It's very frustrating, quite frankly, to do business here. But I'll never forget, I put the application in and they said, it's going to be called Driver's Choice Driving School. Oh no, they declined it. And I said, excuse me? And they said, we can't have a school in downtown. I said, but we have beauty salon training centers, but those are training centers. So I called the town manager at the time, I'll leave him out of it because I gave him a hard time. And I said, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna call the Warren Sentinel, and I'm gonna call the radio station, and I'm gonna say, here I am, wanting to invest in the town of Front Royal to open up a driving school that will serve RMA, and at the time there was no Skyline, and will serve Warren County. He said, give me 24 hours. He called me back 13 hours later the next day and said, you know what you're going to do? I said, what am I going to do? He said, just change it from Driver's Choice Driving School to Driver's Choice Training Center. That's how we solved the problem. And I got the permit. And what's crazy about this is that's the type of archaic, stupid stuff that our business people that want to come in and open up encounter. And it should not be like that. And ultimately, what can we do to help the business community? We can make the process of getting that business open a little easier. When I came to town and opened up the middle of Maine, we moved back up here from Charleston. You know who I went to? It wasn't the town of Front Royal. I went to the Chamber of Commerce. I'll never forget, the director of the chamber at that time was Kitty Zuckerman. She made a huge impact on me. We'd known each other back a long time ago. I hadn't seen her in 15 years. And I said, Kitty, I want to open up an antique emporium in town. Can you help me? She had all the resources there. She handed me a packet. Unfortunately, she'd given her notice. She was moving on to a better job. But they helped me, and that was a great resource. So maybe there's something the town of Front Royal can do. I mean, right now the chamber is, only one staff member. But maybe there's something we can do to improve that. It's worth looking into. But right now, we're not the most business-friendly place.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and shut the questions off now, and we're going to give you just 2 minutes to do your elevator speech, closing arguments, asking for people to vote for you here in just a minute. I just want to make it clear that we started this process of this forum in August. And you'll see the names. We've invited every single candidate that's running multiple times. And during August, because we wanted this to be before early voting, and it just never happened because this candidate, that candidate just kept pushing it, kicking it down the road because, well, I can't use that date, I can't do this date. And finally, or we didn't get any response at all. So we finally just picked this date, and this is why it's tonight, because the election's next week. So we have tried to do this for quite a while to get this done and do it in this format. But you'll see we have invited all the candidates, but there are some candidates that didn't show up. And it's not because they weren't invited multiple times, but they were too busy. And that was mostly the answer we have from emails. I'm just booked solid. You should have done this sooner. And so we have tried to do it sooner. So we finally do a line in the sand, said this is the day, come or not. So that's why you only see 3 candidates here. So let's go ahead and let's start with Walt. And Walt, let's go ahead and give your closing remarks.
2 minutes, huh?
Well, 2.5.
Okay. I'll be as quick as I possibly can.
Turn the mic towards your mouth.
1 minute.
There you go.
There we go. It's better. All right. I can't tell you how passionate I am about this county. I help in many, many different ways. I serve on many boards, and every one of those boards help people. And to be able to do that requires the assistance of everybody. Our community is somewhat split on religious, politics, you name it, there's a split in it. I'm a man of faith, and I've heard this over the last few days that God actually, or Jesus actually loves those people that you dislike. And we need to take the people that are fighting us seriously, but yet honestly, and help them to understand what we're trying to do. And to do that, we need good leadership. Leadership comes from the individuals that are trying to serve your community. I want to be one of those people because I believe in every one of the people that are in this community. I'm part of it. I'm happy to be part of it. And if you let me, I'll serve you well. Thank you.
Well, I ran a campaign last year to bring some things to the forefront, naively thinking I could immediately make an impact. You can't, because as a council person, that depends on the mayor setting the agenda. So first of all, it's got to be on their radar. It has to be important to them for it to be important to us. So my ideas of coming in there and things I knew and my business experience were pretty much kind of set to the side. And I saw the behavior of the council and not what I expected it to be. Excuse me. But then we had a retreat earlier this year, and we spent numerous evenings with a facilitator to come up with goals and objectives. That was not my jacket. Yes, I am joking.
You need me to take over for a second?
Yeah, take over. I'm sorry. Anyway, we set goals and objectives, and then we got to the budget, and we put no money in the budget to meet the goals and objectives, other than what we could do for free. And that disappointed me. Our behavior after that, goals and objectives, goal meeting, improved for about a month. People talked less, they thought more about what they were saying and respected one another. And then it went back to the way it was before. And if you watch the meetings, you know what I'm talking about. In business, we don't have time for that BS. It's not about promoting ourselves, it's about getting the job done. It's about respecting each other's opinion, whether you agree or not, making a decision and moving on. We've spent countless hours on things that only affect a dozen people in this town. I won't go into that because you'll laugh and then that probably won't come across well.
I'll go there.
You do. All right, but I deserve to serve you for 4 years. I've got my feet wet. I kind of know how the game is being played now, but I'm going to represent all of you. No one's going to whisper in my ear and tell me what to do, how to vote. And I've seen that happen, folks. It does happen. I'm going to represent you, all of you. Don't forget early voting is going on now through Saturday, 9 to 5, 14th Street. And I humbly ask you for your vote. Thank you.
So I'll pick up where Glenn is on the closing. So retreats are made to come up with goals. You have a team discussion, the team comes together and they say, this is what we want to achieve. And what has been achieved out of that retreat, which, you know, it's touchy-feely. I said this when I interviewed with Mike a couple weeks ago. Touchy-feely things are nice, but we're a business. And so we created a Citizens Academy, and 8 people were currently enrolled in it. What a wonderful thing, and that was discussed at the retreat. There's been a town open house down at the gazebo. What a wonderful thing. Several hundred people came down, met town staff, saw the trucks. It's a wonderful thing. If I'm your mayor, I promise you that when we go to a retreat, we're going to talk about substantive things that will improve our community. We're going to talk about water. We're going to talk about the different resources and who's going to serve on that committee and what is our plan to look at several resources. We're going to talk about well-managed growth. We're going to talk about a planned neighborhood development or this substantive things. We're going to talk about a parking garage somewhere down Main Street. We're going to create committees that can serve these things. I plan on creating a tourism committee, a parking authority, a water committee, a transportation committee. These are citizens that are volunteering their time and their help, and they have expertise. And they don't necessarily have to be in Front Royal. They can be in the county. They can just be people that want to help. And I want to have those committees report back to us so that we have a sense of what we're doing, that we are not, the mayor and council is not the authority, but the people that are doing the research are, the staff and the planning commission. And I will one last thing I'll point out to you is running our meeting like it's a business. It's great to have resumes of where you've gone, where you've been, what you're doing. But again, we're there to conduct business. We're there to make decisions, to have public hearings, to hear people's comments, not to find out what I did last week. And I'm going to run the meetings like a business. And we're going to get in there, we're going to conduct our business. You can watch the video. You don't have to sit there for 2.5, 3 hours to watch the meeting. And ultimately, we're going to talk about substantive things in our work sessions. 59 minutes and 23 seconds. This current council spent 59 minutes and 23 seconds talking about 6 chickens versus 10 chickens. That's where I went. I told him I was going to go there.
I just couldn't.
You know, and again, I'm sure it was important, and I'm sure the 33 people that have chickens in Front Royal were very concerned about that. The 50, however many it is. But, you know, we've got important issues. There are important things that we can achieve. And I'm an independent for a reason. I'm going to read something, I'm going to close on this. Here he goes. Elected officials within the Commonwealth of Virginia are by law not allowed to provide party designation for local candidates on the ballot. The only candidates that may have a party designation on the ballot are those running for federal, statewide, or General Assembly office. This came in my mailbox today. Re-elect our Republican team. This is against the law, and I'm not going to break the law. So I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. It's coming up on Tuesday, and you know, again, we'll have a decision. We're going to have a party Tuesday night, whether we win or lose, because one thing I think we've done is we have affected the conversation. Water's now being talked about. There are things now being discussed, and we brought that to light. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank all of you that have come tonight. It's really, it's good to see the turnout. I want to thank again Rick Novak for volunteering his facilities. Big hand for Rick. Thank Rob McDougall for kind of coordinating and heading this forum up. And I want to thank the candidates that showed up. So, again, you can watch a replay of this. It'll be on the Royal Examiner tomorrow, and you can share that around. It'll be on social media, and we appreciate if you'll share that around. The election is Tuesday. I would say vote early, vote often, but we don't do that anymore.
Wrong state.
Wrong state. Again, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.